speak with me, Shivani Gupta. On Thursday, 5 soldiers were killed and 1 was injured after an army vehicle was fired upon in Jammu and Kashmir's Poonch. This is the biggest attack post-Pulwama, in which 44 CRPF jawans lost their lives. Army has launched a massive search operation to nab the terrorists. Army and security agencies have received inputs about the presence of about 6 to 7 terrorists operating in 2 groups in the Rajouri-Poonch sector. The attack comes just ahead of the all-important G20 meeting, which is scheduled to be held in Jammu and Kashmir in May. The attack also took place a day after Pakistan Foreign Minister Bilawal Bhutto confirmed his presence for a visit to India in May. Has this attack then been timed to embarrass India on both these fronts? Is the attack an attempt to derail the G20 talks in Srinagar? And if we go by preliminary reports, past experiences, we know where the roots of such attacks are. In such a circumstance, how should India respond? We'll take all of those questions to our experts joining us in just a bit. But first up, Havaldar Mandeep Singh, Lance Nayak Devashish Baswal, Lance Nayak Kulwant Singh, Sepoy Harkishan Singh and Sepoy Sevak Singh of Rashtra Rifles were killed, martyred in this attack. While the one Jawan who's been seriously injured is undergoing treatment, no doubt he's going to be very crucial as far as cracking the case is concerned, getting more details out is concerned. A massive manhunt, as I mentioned, has been underway. People's Anti-Fascist Front, PAFF, has claimed responsibility for this attack. PAFF is a proxy terror outfit of the Lashkar-e-Taiba. The terror group has threatened to target upcoming Srinagar G20 meet. It is also a group that regularly issues threats to forces, politicians and migrants in Jammu and Kashmir. Here is what intel sources are saying on the Poonch ambush. 3 terrorists are suspected to be foreigners, 2 are locals. According to intel sources, this is a planned attack with a motive to create sensation ahead of the G20. Sources say terror group was sitting in Rajouri and Poonch jungles for a period of time. Earlier, a residential property has also been attacked in Rajouri. Now, security forces have initiated a crackdown where OGWs are being probed to know more about the perpetrators. But what intel sources also tell us are the changing tactics of terror groups in Jammu and Kashmir. So terrorist groups are no longer targeting urban areas. The focus has shifted from urban areas to jungles now. Terrorists maintain minimal contact with the outside world. After carrying out any attack, they retreat to these remote jungle locations. Now, this phenomenon can also be attributed to the fact that there's a shrinking size of overground workers. Terrorists are also aware that forces do face difficulties when they are navigating these tough jungle terrain. Now, decades change, but Pakistan's deceit doesn't. This latest episode coming just ahead of the SEO meeting, just ahead of Bilawal Bhutto's meeting, points to the same. Just look at some of the examples. When India reached out with the Lahore bus yatra, we got Kargil war in return. When we opened up trade routes in 2008, we got Mumbai terror attack. In 2018, we sent 2 ministers for Kartarpur corridor ceremony. What did we get in return? We got Pulwama terror attack. And now, in a new decade, we invite Bilawal Bhutto for the SEO meet. We have Poonch terror attack take place. Of course, as I mentioned, the big question will be on Pakistan's role. The other big question that we also asked today as we go into our first debate, how should India respond? We've known how India can respond with previous strikes. Is it time for something like that, something else or more?
बड़ी दर्दनाक घटना है, लेकिन अभी उन लोगों को मार तो गिराया जाएगा जल्द, इसमें कोई दो राय नहीं है। सेना और जो सुरक्षा बल हैं अपने अपने काम पर लगे हुए हैं।
क्यों भारत माँ के वीर सपूतों के ऊपर इस तरह के कायर लोग हमला कर देते हैं? मैं मांग करता हूँ कि सरकार जैश जैसे जो अपनी जिम्मेवारी ले रहा है इस हमले की, उसके ऊपर कड़ी से कड़ी कार्रवाई की जाए।
Many of them are carrying this, printed placard saying Pakistan nursery of terrorism, and we're seeing others also raising slogans against militancy in Kashmir Valley.
Let me first go across to my colleagues, Arunima, Editor Home Affairs, Tajinder Singh Sodhi, Assistant Editor, joining us from different locations. Tajinder, I want to come to you first. Just give me a sense of what does the crackdown in the valley look like today? Exactly what is happening as far as the security efforts are concerned?
See, Shivani, right now the security agencies, they are focusing on, their main focus is on two aspects. Number one, whether these terrorists, they came from the Kashmir valley, they carried out this terror attack and they returned to Kashmir using the Mughal route or the roads inside the jungle. So this is one of the main aspect which the security agencies are looking into, because if you see the trend ever since these attacks in the Rajouri Poonch area started in September, October 2021, since then there has been no trace of those terrorists who are involved in these terrorists, except one instance where on 11th of August 2022, 5 army jawans, they were martyred when terrorists, two Jaish-e-Mohammed terrorists, they tried to barge into a military camp in the Pargal area of Rajouri district. So now the security agencies, they are also looking to the fact that there is a possibility that this group of terrorists, they are based out in somewhere in Shupian, Kulgam area, from where they come to Jammu region from the Mughal road, or they use the road from the jungle area. They carry out this attack, and after this attack they return to Kashmir valley. So hence they don't leave any trace. This seems to be the case in the Bataduria encounter, wherein we lost 9 of our brave heart. This also seems to be true in case of the Dangri terror attack, because there has been no trace of the terrorist involved in that case. So a crackdown has been launched and all the aspects are being looked into. The second aspect is that this group of terrorists, they might have been hiding somewhere in the Bhatadurian jungle, which is spread in a huge area. So efforts are also on, as we have been continuously reporting from that area, how drones, helicopters, they are being used into service to as find out the exact location of these terrorists. But right now, 24 hours after this incident, there has been no success. Yes.
Right. Arunima, I want to come to you to understand the big picture. I think we've lost the link with Arunima, but I do thank Tajinder Singh Sodhi for joining us. Let's also open this up to our guests joining us. I want to go across to Tuhin Sinha, BJP spokesperson, joining us. Charan Singh Sapra from the Congress Party, Lieutenant General KJ Singh, former GOC in Chief, Western Command. Farooq Renzu Shah, chairman of the Kashmir Society, is also with us. Let me go across to Tuhin Sinha. Tuhin, you know, this is, of course, in terms of the damage that it has caused for the Indian forces, is one of the biggest terror attacks, the biggest terror attacks in Jammu and Kashmir. Coming just ahead of the SCO, coming just ahead of the G20, this is going to be a big headache for the government, isn't it?
Well, yes, Shivani, on the face of it, it's that it had a twofold agenda. One, to try and disperse India's reputation that's supposed to, and we are supposed to have the G20 committee over there. And two, a desperate attempt by Pakistan to keep the issue of Kashmir alive. But fact is, these are what you see today is the sediments, or probably the leftover of Pakistan terrorism in the last few years, from maybe 5,000 odd terrorists in the valley in 2015, 2016. There are barely 100 of them left. So yes, I mean, it will be avenged probably, even after an Uri, after a Balakot retaliation, if these guys, and at a time when Pakistan is bankrupt, if they cannot give up their morbid obsession with Kashmir.
Okay, can I just ask you, can I just get a clarity from you? While I obviously don't want to speculate or, in any way suggest that we want to rush the government into announcing what happens, what doesn't happen. But you do believe, as a BJP spokesperson, you are saying you do believe that there needs to be a response, and a response on the level of the Balakot airstrikes? Is that what you're saying?
No, see, first of all, we leave it entirely to our armed forces. We completely trust that they are capable of deciding the retaliation. So that's something which is completely left to them. But on the larger question of Pakistan's perfidy and its deceptive behavior across over the last seven decades, the only thing Pakistan has shown is that it doesn't respect decent behavior from India. It learns things the hard way, and if that is what is, will drill sense into Pakistan, we are prepared for that.
Okay. Charan Singh Sapra, I want to understand from you as well. Of course, this is a matter of concern for India. But these terror attacks have been coming down. The government will, of course, also talk about the fact that overall terror activity, the number of terrorists, the amount of infiltration that takes place, all of that has come down. But given that this has happened just before the G20 meeting, there's an SCO meeting lined up, do you believe that India needs to respond in a very, very stiff manner, needs to send out a message? We all know where the tentacles of terror in Kashmir go to.
To start with, I would like to give my condolences to the brave hearts and their families. We have unfortunately lost them. All have been martyred. As far as the government is concerned, or as far as the BJP is concerned, I feel their answers after every incident, whether it is the killing of Kashmiri Pandits or whether any other attack. Now, let me tell you that in the same place, a few months ago, there was an attack and 9 soldiers were killed. All the time, BJP gives similar answers. It's like, old wine in new bottle. They don't have a defined policy, a clear policy to fight this proxy war. And I'll give you one example whereby, the Home Minister, sometimes he says that we have reduced the military cover from Jammu and Kashmir. They withdraw some forces from there. And then in United Nations, they go and say that the terrorist activity has increased. So these double standards should be taken care of by the government. It is a serious issue. We are ready to be with the government as far as this proxy war of Pakistan is concerned. Whatever step government wants to take, they can discuss with the opposition parties also. But they should have a firm policy. They should not have double standards. It is only
double
because
standards.
this
Can I just quickly
doesn't have a clear policy. That's why such things are happening, and it is repeatedly happening.
Okay, fair enough. Can I just quickly bring in Tuhin before I go across to our other 2 guests as well? Tuhin, please respond, because those questions naturally will arise. What is the policy? If there is such a strong policy, why do these attacks keep taking place?
It's very sad that when Mr. Sapra says that he doesn't want to do politics, that's precisely what he's doing. We never hobnobbed with the Hurriyat, we never patronized them. Fact is that we have done away with the core funding of terrorists, which the Hurriyat was the conduit for. We have completely dismantled the terror infrastructure. If these sediments, like I at the very start, I use the word sediments, these are the leftovers of the Pakistan legacy, which was encouraged by the Congress government. So I think the policy is very clear. Can
I please answer? He is deviating from the topic.
The Kashmir society, which has happened with the application of Article 370, with the inclusion of the society in all our government schemes. But yes, when it comes to these terror attacks, once in a while, we will give them a fitting response and ensure. But over a period of 7 decades, we have seen that Pakistan doesn't learn its lessons the straight way. It doesn't, respect these.
Yes, Mr. Sapra, you can respond. Mr. Sapra, you can respond, but please very quickly, please.
See, what I mean to say that this government is not learning from the repeated attacks. I would like to now quote Satyapal Malik, who had shown his apprehensions after Pulwama, who had clearly told the media that it is an intelligence failure. Now again, this attack is an intelligence failure. This government is not learning the lessons, whether it is from Satyapal Malik, whether it is from the opposition party, or whether it is from the system itself. This government is more worried, or the BJP is more worried about the muscular policy of Narendra Modi or the muscular image of Narendra Modi. They don't want that muscular image to get reduced.
Can I go across?
Just what they have been talking. That's why they want to protect that 56-inch chest, and they don't want to protect the soldiers.
Fair enough, sir. Fair enough, but I don't really want to get into that kind of politics today. Let's give our agencies and our government some time to tell us what has happened. The army some time to respond, and of course we can get into all of those questions as well. Political questions always will arise, there is no doubt about that. But I want to go across to one of our experts on the panel, Lieutenant General KJ Singh. Sir, how do you see this? Is this a big intelligence failure, or how do you put it, this attack?
Shivani, Jai Hind. First of all, I'll join all the panelists and your channel in conveying heartfelt condolences at the loss of brave hearts.
Yes.
We assure them as a nation that we look after their dependents. The government, I'm sure, the 2 state governments which are involved, Punjab and Orissa, their units, their regiments will take care of. The people can't come back. But we are committed to looking after the dependents of our brave hearts. Let me start with this positive note. there are various options that forces have, and I do not say that it is, at this stage, I cannot say it is intelligence failure, because general intelligence, there was a meeting also.
Yes, yes.
It was felt that something like this can happen because the G20 meeting is going to be held between 22nd and 24th May. Now, the problem is, these are generalized warnings. And in that specific area, whatever structure is there, they'll have to introspect. Why did they miss the various leads? Every incident, we must learn from it. There can be no perfect solutions. Shivani, there will be, you cannot say that there'll be zero sort of terror attack. There'll be some attacks which will take place. It is important to localize that group, take care of it, and then also trace from where it has been launched. If there is a terror launch pad which is in vicinity, surely action will be taken against that.
Do you believe so? Sir, I just want to press on that subject, because that is the fundamental question that is on the minds of all Indians. How is India going to respond? The expectations of the Indian public of how we are going to respond to our neighboring factors when such attacks take place has skyrocketed. Do you believe that there is a requirement to do something? I mean, we can wait for of course, for the agencies and the army to make up their mind about what exactly transpired as this attack took place or how it took place. But we all know where all of this really comes from, isn't it? When we talk about Jammu and Kashmir.
Shivani, the response is best served cold. It has to be done professionally, and we are capable of doing it. I'm sure the agencies are working on it, and we can't rush them into a hurried response, because it entails risk for our people also. So it will happen, and I hope that the group is localized on this side only and dealt with. And if required, if there is a launch pad which is identified, surely action will be taken. Action can I
ask you one more question, sir? Because questions will arise. Was there something amiss as far as the SOPs are concerned? As this, we are told it was a convoy, but we are not quite certain how many vehicles were there or whether this vehicle had drifted from the convoy, what had happened. We don't quite know. I don't want to speculate. But given what has transpired in the past, the questions that have been in public domain recently, do you believe there has been a slip up on the SOP part as well?
Shivani, see, there are various local factors. It was raining. There was bad visibility. There are days when you have dry days, when vehicles don't run in convoy. You have to run vehicles in lot of 2 or 3. Was it a part of that? I'm not very sure, because I retired about 6-7 years back. And I am only seeing the official information which is coming out. So if there is a failure, surely people will take action. I am assure you of that. And we will learn lessons. On unit level, I can't guarantee you. There can be a slip up. But action will be taken. Redressal will be done. It's unfortunate if it has happened like that. But generally, there is no, in my perception, such a thing is a low probability thing, as I look at it, Shivani.
Okay, all right, fair enough. I want to go across to Farooq Renzu also, who's joining us. You know, I don't want to go by just what the government is saying, but we've had several Kashmiri voices coming on this network, across our network, and just generally in the public domain, in the media, talk about the fundamental shift that has happened in Jammu and Kashmir, and especially Kashmir. Do you believe this is an attempt to attack that quote-unquote progress, especially with the G20 meet being held in Srinagar? This is particularly to target that, any sense of pride, normalcy coming in?
I think you have a very great point, and I, as a person who is based in Kashmir and knows how things have started really taking a very positive shape after just 5th August 2019. It was actually earlier, the proxies were working. The administration, there were the proxies, there was a Ziaul Huq's doctrine, enter and capture. the doctrine give 1,000 cuts to the India, and the doctrine was being helped by the government sitting inside. The proxies were not only Hurriyat, proxies were also certain parties were posing to be the mainstream parties, and they were part. That is the Satyapal's interview, Satyapal Malik's recent interview. If you will listen, there was a Deputy Chief Minister, ex-Deputy Chief Minister Muzaffar Beg, meeting him and conveying him the message of the Gilani to the Rajbhavan, and being the late to the Rajbhavan appointment, but getting first to going to the residence of the Gilani.
Okay.
At that time, if it is a fact, it is a point to be seen that the infrastructure of Ziaul Haq is still alive. It has been only face of it. It has been dismantled, and they are in some. The clergy is still there, and clergy is more empowered who are telling Ghazwatul Hind. It is not. You can say it is a start of another 90 type of earlier stray incidents, because Ghazwatul Hind is a part of an ideology which has been encouraged even by the government establishments. I know one who is presently the SP probably in the police.
Okay, let's not make individual charges since we don't have those individuals to defend themselves. But just on the broader issue.
You not individual charges.
No, but on the broader issue.
Infrastructure is alive.
No, Farooq ji, I take your point. I take your point that Pak sympathetic infrastructure is still alive. But I want to understand from you, how do ordinary Kashmiris look at the fact that this attack has happened, especially with the G20 summit coming in? Do you believe that this is a way to derail progress?
The point is, there has been a very good relationship emerging between army and the people directly during last 2-3 years. And army was being much more being hailed and loved by the people of Kashmir during 3-4 years. But today, and there has been a good enthusiasm among people of Kashmir. G20 is happening. It is going to boost our image very high. And I don't think everybody, I condemn as a chief of this Kashmir society that this is a very condemnable. And it is not only the army has been attacked. It is our Kashmir's future has been attacked because of this.
Right.
We were progressing. G20 is a point of progress for us.
Right. Tuhin, that's your challenge. As Farooq ji is saying, that, you know, a lot of things, I know this is not easy, of course, and abrogation of Article 370 only happened in 2019. This is a generational issue. It's a decade-old issue. It takes time. But, you know, this is fundamentally the problem, that there is still much left to dismantle in Kashmir for you to be successful, for us to be successful.
It is encouraging.
The reassuring part is that you have family members of slain terrorists like Burhan Wani hosting national flags, the Indian tricolor, in their homes. They want to join the mainstream. So this is a massive difference that has taken place in the last few years. But I agree that Pakistan as a nation is deceptive, perfidious by nature. It cannot, you know, despite all its internal problems, it cannot just you know, keep away from its morbid obsession with Kashmir. So yes, I mean, from time to time, the unfortunate reality is that we need to give a certain dose to Pakistan, which, you know, as the need arises, we will do over here. But in the last few years, if you simply go by data, I think, you know, terror attacks have become probably 10% of what they used to be pre-2014. And again, I mean, let's not, you know, get politics. People like Satyapal Malik, they have limited credibility. They keep changing their statements. So I don't think we should get them over here in this debate.
Okay, in any case, I want to ask Mr. Sapra a final question as well, sir. That, you know, there are these voices within India that keep harping about how we need to have good relationships with Pakistan. We need to do something. Some dialogue needs to happen. Some, you know, friendship needs to happen. I mean, when is it that we're going to realize as a country, I'm not talking about party to party, as a polity and as a country, that that's not going to happen? You know, the very reason Pakistan exists is to, you know, attack India. Its very being is anti-India. So all of these people keep hampering about this friendship as if we are the ones who don't want to be friends. They need to stop.
See, these such people will keep hampering, but the major portion over here is that what is the ruling party going to decide? What is their policy? There should be a firm policy. That's what I'm talking. And whether they are, when they are doing investigation, the reports should come out. Like the Pulwama report is not disclosed to the people as yet. What happened, how it happened, and report about DYSP Davinder Singh. Why Devinder Singh is out, what investigation is done regarding Devinder Singh. He was caught with a terrorist itself. So such reports should come out. Government should come clear on it. We should have a firm policy, and we should see that.
But sir, for that to happen, you said Pulwama report and all of that. I am for that. But for that to happen, we need to see less heightened politics on security issues, especially in Jammu and Kashmir. We cannot have rabid politics on these issues.
No. I'm not talking about rabid politics, but it is the responsibility of the government. They should come out with a clear, firm stand against this proxy war of Pakistan. Now, Bilawal Bhutto is coming. What is the stand of government? Whether are they going to protest when Bilawal Bhutto is here in India for the meeting, or whether they are going to protest now against Pakistan, whether they are going to go to UN regarding this attack. So government should have a strategy, they should have a firm policy, and people of the country should also know what is the government policy, what is the framework of government to fight Pakistan and the terrorism coming from Pakistan.
Okay, I have to leave it at that. I have to leave it at that. This has just been about 24 hours since this attack. Let's wait and see what happens, what more comes out from the army and the security establishment. And of course, then we'll all await what the government response is going to be. I do thank all of our guests for joining us. Coming up after a very short break, we'll get you more as far as the other big region debate is concerned. And of course, that's about acquittals taking place in very old either terror or riot cases. Where does that leave the victims and their families? We'll get you that in just a bit.
To the other side. That is why they have to be extra vigilant and careful. We must also point out that the fact that when last time, when around this area, which is 1 kilometer away, we are told by our sources, when army lost more than 5 personnel in that particular attack, once the attack was carried out, army immediately rushed in additional troops, and those additional troops also came under fire. That is where that is where security forces or army might not want to go in, launch an attack, but carefully, tactfully use their resources and launch this particular attack where they could be able to either nab them down or neutralize those militants who are behind this particular attack. As I was pointing out earlier, that there is a large presence or a small presence of these militant outfits in Poonch Rajouri belt, because they have been on and off carrying out attacks, be it on civilians. Last time we saw Dangri, where multiple people lost their lives. There were IEDs placed inside the houses. And then we also saw before that, as I was pointing out, that there was an attack which took place in the same area, same belt, where more than 6 soldiers lost their lives, including 2 junior commissioned officers. So that is a matter of concern for the security forces, but they have been cracking down on those elements who have been previously involved in such incidents or could still have links with those who are providing them overground support, because OGWs are the people who logistics and daily routine or route, because most of the it's mostly possible that those who are behind this attack could be from outside India, could be from Pakistan, and that is why security forces will be extra vigilant to not only trap them down but also bring down the whole network which is behind this particular attack. But the LOC is not far away. We don't yet know whether it's a freshly infiltrated group or it was a group which was operational in that part, because recently when these attacks have taken place, and PAFF was a shadow organization of Jaish and Lashkar combined, have done these attacks and then disappeared. They haven't come out, doing attacks after, few days or few months, but they have taken their own time and then planned and carried out attacks. So security forces might be very well aware about the fact. But if you look at the vehicle, there is also a possibility. We don't know yet what the investigation is looking like, but yes, there is also a possibility because we have seen sticky bombs being placed. How did the vehicle caught fire? The army for now says that it was a grenade, which resulted in catching of fire of the vehicle. There were bullets which were fired at them. There is also, in the video where we can hear bullet sounds. That is speculative fire that the army does when they want to locate the enemy, when they want to locate the person who has fired at it. But there was no response, it seems like, from the militant side, which means that they wanted to carry out this attack and ambush and then run away from the area. That has been how they have been operating largely in Poonch, Rajouri, Doda, and all these areas in recent past. But yes, there has been a large crackdown, and I will also, as part of its investigation, visit the spot and try to figure out that, the sort of way in which this attack was carried out.
Arunima, did we have any intel input before this attack actually took place?
So the analysis in the security grid is that this attack has been carried out to give a message ahead of G20 about the safety and security. Targeting an army vehicle is meant to also hit the morale of the forces there. This was a Rashtriya Rifles vehicle, one which was carrying ration in most likelihood. And the modus operandi of the terrorists was very clear. Target them in an area which is heavily forested, an isolated road, so to say. Target them with firing and grenade. And because the vehicle itself has fuel, then when you fire, the vehicle itself can become an incendiary device. So the strategy also seemed very clear. And this area, heavily forested, has natural caves very close to the line of control. So to escape also, the terrorists have the cover of the natural foliage in that area. So well planned and well thought out is what the security grid feels.
5 army soldiers were killed in a terror attack in Jammu and Kashmir's Poonch district on Thursday around 3 p.m. Now, according to intel sources, the attack was done by Lashkar-e-Taiba. The attack on the army vehicle happened while it was moving from Bhimber Gali to Sangyot, which is around 10 kilometers from the LOC. One Jawan was critically injured in this incident and was shifted to a nearby hospital. The Indian Army later released a statement and confirmed that this was a terror attack on the army.
Welcome back. A special court in Ahmedabad on Thursday acquitted all 67 accused in the Naroda communal violence case. This includes former BJP leader, ex-minister Maya Kodnani, ex-Bajrang Dal leader Babu Bajrangi and Vishwa Hindu Parishad leader Jaideep Patel. The judges cited lack of evidence in the case. Remember, 11 people were killed in communal violence in Naroda area of Ahmedabad city in February 2002, and this incident happened after when a bandh was called, in fact, which was called to protest the Godhra train burning and massacre that had happened a day before. Just last month, all 4 men who were sentenced to death in Jaipur 2008 blast were also acquitted by Rajasthan High Court. In those serial blasts, 9 bombs exploded in 8 locations all over Jaipur's crowded old city. Over 70 people were killed, over 180 injured. Indian Mujahideen had claimed responsibility and 4 people were convicted. But in March 2023, Rajasthan High Court acquitted all 4 who got death penalty in this case. The court pulled up the police, in fact, flagging a botched investigation caused by institutional failure. Court cited lack of proof and also pointed out investigators' incompetency and lack of legal knowledge. The court also said nefarious means were employed by investigating agencies. They directed the Rajasthan DGP to act against the erring officers of the investigating team. Naturally, this is leading to questions if no one is guilty of killing all of these people who died in all of these cases. We take that forward with our guest joining us with the question if agencies are failing victims in these cases.
विशेष अदालत वहाँ की है, उससे कोई उम्मीद की नहीं जा सकती है। जिस तरह से साक्ष्य वहाँ पर दबाए गए हैं और आर्गूमेंट पुलिस ने किया है, पुलिस ही तो आर्गूमेंट करती है, केस बनाती है।
एक हादसा हुआ था, तब जो सरकार थी उस सरकार ने चौक्कस पॉलिटिकल इल मोटिव से नरेंद्र भाई को और पूरे गुजरात को बदनाम करने की साजिश की थी।
Let me go across to the guests joining us. Ajay Umat, Group Editor. Nav Gujarat Samay. Rashid Kidwai is author and senior journalist. Dr. Vikram Sim is former IPS officer, former UP DGP, also with us. I thank you all for your time. Ajay Umat, let me begin with you. It doesn't sit right with the public when, you know, after years and years of probes, even sentencing in some cases, then the accused are completely acquitted. And the reason that the courts give is lack of evidence. You know, that leaves a very bad taste in the mouth of everyone because somebody is guilty of these crimes.
Absolutely correct. You know, that reminds me that, you know, nobody killed Jessica Lal.
Yes.
The point I am making is that, you know, yesterday I was there in the court and everybody was taking that you know, prosecution and some group, they have virtually botched up the investigation and inquiry. Remember one thing, this happened in 2002 on 28th of February. Then from 2002, you know, they could not find any sterling evidence or witnesses in this case. And then, you know, some activists and few NGOs, they came from outside Gujarat, you know, they came with cyclostyle complaints, FIRs, and, you know, printout statement where they said that, you know, I have seen so-and-so doing killing so-and-so. I have seen so-and-so instigating the mob. I have seen so-and-so setting ablaze this thing. So, and you know, they even did not bother to struck down the other things. And Commissioner of Police at that point of time, he clubbed all the complaints in the form of an FRI 98/2002. And then, you know, the matter had gone to the court. So court said that, you know, you have virtually botched up everything and this cannot happen. So ultimately matter had gone to Supreme Court, and in 2008, remember, after 2002 to 2008, there was virtually no investigation, no sterling evidence or witnesses have come out openly against this accused. And in 2008, you know, Supreme Court appointed a special investigation team. And in 2010, you know, based on their charge sheet that there was a criminal conspiracy to do this Narodagam killings, 2010, you know, the real case started in the court of law. So I personally feel, you know, the time lost.
Yes.
They lost all kind of evidences and nobody was interested in doing complaints, and we all know the political pressures and everything.
Exactly. So I was going to come to the political question. Ajay ji, I want to ask you, for the accused, in this case, prominent individuals who've of course been condemned for 21 years. You look at somebody like Maya Kodnani, right? And now she's acquitted.
I will explain you. In case of Maya Kodnani, Amit Bhai Shah, the present Home Minister, at that point of time, he was MLA in Gujarat Assembly. He came as defense witness, and he said, which I also feel was right, that, you know, Maya Ben Kodnani was in Assembly in morning 8:30 on 28th of February. And after that condolence resolution was passed in Assembly, all the MLAs of Bharatiya Janata Party, they had gone from Assembly to Sola Civil Hospital. So Amit Bhai said that, you know, I had seen her in Assembly and then I had seen her at Sola Civil Hospital. Now from that time onwards, you know, somebody said that I had seen Maya Ben in Naroda Patia. Somebody said that I had seen Maya Ben Kodnani in Narodagam. Someone said I have seen her at Gulbakh Colony. Somebody said, two police officers said that, you know, we have escorted her from Sola Civil Hospital to RTO and from RTO to her hospital.
Yes.
So many contradicting evidences have come in case of Maya Ben Kodnani.
No, there is some digital evidence to support that she was in the Assembly. So maybe that overruled. But, you know, I just want to take her example to ask the question. For all of these accused, how do we look at it? This is a salvaging of their reputations. Are we to feel sympathetic towards them, as you would in other cases where somebody gets acquitted after 21 years, or are we to feel something else? It's very complicated in these cases, because we recently had Jaipur blast accused who were sentenced to death also acquitted. And, you know, emotions and sentiments may be different in that case acquittal and this case acquittal. But what do you think? What does this mean for the accused in this case?
Unfortunately, it has happened in Haret Pandya murder case also. It happened in Akshardham terrorist firing also. So that means that, you know, investigation or, you know, prosecution did not bother, or, you know, there were no quality evidences or witnesses came forward to witness in the court of law. I personally feel in case of Babu Bajrangi, the only evidence was that, there was only one set of sting operation. Nobody came forward to give evidence or, witness against him that yes, we saw Babu Bajrangi. So there was only one sting operation, and that CD was given in Gulbarg case also. The same CD was given in Naroda Patia, and same was given in Naroda Gam. So there is a clear-cut case of double jeopardy. If a person is convicted in Naroda Patia, which is 2.5 kilometers away from Naroda Gam, then he cannot be convicted in Naroda Gam.
So were these individuals Rashid Kidwai, were these individuals then actually victims of a conspiracy where they were named and blamed and suffered for 21 years? Today, their reputations have been restored because clearly there wasn't enough evidence against them. And it has happened in other cases. So if in other cases, acquittals are looked at as, the fact that you need to feel sympathy for those accused, why not in this case?
Shivani, this is a very telling commentary on the criminal justice system. I am glad that you have Dr. Vikram Singh in this panel, and perhaps he can shed a light how this kind of investigation is done when the heinous crime against humanity are committed. And you see that whether it's the investigation part or the verdict is politicized, it is seen from the prism of Hindu-Muslim, it is seen from the prism of communal, secular. I think this is something that's because these are the crimes against the state, and obviously somebody had done it. If somebody had done it, that should be a culprit. Just Shivani, allow me to tell you something. See, since the post-independent India and before this Gujarat riots or Godhra riots, etc., we have had 52 communal riots in which over 15,000 people were killed, and not one person has been held guilty. People, periodically. So it's not a question of, that secular communal politics. It tells you something terrible about our society when people don't get justice, when investigation is not done properly, when the judicial trial does not take place. Why should it take 21 years?
No, absolutely. But Rashid Kidwai, it's not the case of communal riots alone. This is happening in terror cases also. Why don't we have similar outrage when it happens in terror cases to terror accused from Indian Mujahideen, no less?
Absolutely. Again, I'm saying whether it's a terror or anything, these are all the crime against the state. You look at any developed country, you look at US, you look at Britain, you look at France, you look at any country that you can think of. There is one set of law, and these are not politicized. They are not, looked from the prism of Hindu-Muslim. They are not looked from the prism of secular communal.
Oh, looks like unfortunately we've lost his link. But Vikram Singh, I want to come to you. This is indictment of the police. This is indictment of the investigation agencies. And if it continues like that, if it continues that court after court is indicting the investigation agencies, who are we to look towards to get good investigation done and get guilty to justice?
Shivani, this is a horrible form of criminal justice.
And in the present case, I would say that for many, many decades, I have not seen something as horrible and as disgraceful as this investigation. The court has said that the investigators have used nefarious tools, and this is an indictment, and it is something that is a very adverse impact on the careers of the investigators and the prosecutors. There was a practice that if such a thing happened in a court of law, there were consequences for the investigators and the prosecutors. I would like to ask you, Shivani, have you ever heard of an investigator or a prosecutor being taken to task for an adverse judgment or an adverse remark?
That's precisely the question I wanted to ask you. What are the penalties against these officers, and what is the remedy for the accused? The accused must also get some remedies. For 20 years, somebody has suffered and has been virtually condemned.
Shivani, there are inbuilt systems, but we have just looking the other way to facilitate whom. It's an open one. I will go to say, to help the accused, Initially, what was done was, it was a bad investigation and worse prosecution. Therefore, the investigator and the prosecutor must be taken to task, must be punished. And if this punishment does not happen, we are again quoting the recipe of disaster and encouraging others to come out with shoddy investigation, not because they are shoddy. The investigators are very smart people. They are influenced monetarily, influenced politically, or both. And that is why you come up with an investigation that is almost like a veritable self-goal.
But sir, we need then, do you think a good deterrent would be that any investigating officers must be then indicted, and there must be some punitive action against them, some criminal action against them when something like this happens?
Precisely, Shivani. It is inbuilt in the system that when such a judgment comes, there is an acquittal report that is prepared, and the acquittal report then analyzes whose fault. Normally, in such cases, and in this case, it was a bad investigation and a worse prosecution. Therefore, both need to be given deterrent punishment. We have not given these punishments, and you have quoted that a spree of disaster. This is exactly what I'm trying to say. And then now, at least to atone for the sins that or the misdemeanors that the investigators and the prosecutors may have done, Shivani, please take pains to go to the higher court in appeal and put additional evidence what you chose to ignore. They must have bossed up, and in an attempt to help the accused, they did what they should not have done. I know how a devious mind works.
Okay, I have to leave it at that. I do thank all of our guests for joining us. Clearly, the acquittals in both the 2008 Jaipur blast case and now the 2002 Naroda Gam case have brought up a lot of questions of where these investigations are going. But let me move on to the other big story we're tracking. A study by Economic Advisory Council to the Prime Minister of India shows no evidence of discrimination against religious or social groups in providing basic amenities and welfare schemes. Titled A Secular Democracy in Practice, Objective Assessment of Amenities Programs in India, this study by EAC-PM member and economist Shamika Ravi has examined gains in electricity, bank accounts, mobiles, toilets, and cited that data to bust the perception of, quote, dwindling democracy in India as alleged by the opposition party. Now, let me just give you a brief idea of how this study has been conducted. So, this study has been conducted using the data from National Family Health Survey. So, it's actually self-reported data. It is not administrative data. The study covers the time period from 2015-16 to 2019-21. So, that's a period of 5 years. And it includes data from over 1.2 million households, and especially the poorest of the poor. Here are the highlights of the study. First up, no evidence of catering only to one community. There is no discrimination against minority groups in providing basic amenities. The conclusion this report makes is that India's democracy remains robust with no evidence of discrimination, but the government must continue to focus on uplifting the poorest 20% amongst us. Data says there is no evidence of government catering only to one community or religion from this period that I mentioned. There are some graphs as I am showing. In some cases, minority communities have gained more than the majority community, as this chart shows. In categories like toilets, bank, accounts, electricity, target achievement is higher in Muslim households than Hindu households from the 20% poorest households. Even in the category of phones, mobile phones, Christians and Muslims are ahead of Hindu households. I'm joined by the author of this report, Shamika Ravi. Shamika Ravi, thanks a lot for speaking to us. I want to first begin by understanding from you, why was this study done? Was there any particular need felt? Was this sanctioned for a particular reason? Why was this felt necessary?
No, nobody sanctions such studies. Basically, you see, there is something fundamentally flawed in the way the current rankings you are seeing in terms of the democracy, and you are seeing some studies come out and basically paint India as a country where democracy is weakening.
Right.
Now, you know, just ranking democracies and autocracies across the world, it's a very, it's a simple exercise, meaning do you have free and fair elections? Does everyone have vote? Do you have peaceful transition of power, and is there a separation of the power between different arms? But a given democracy, whether it is strengthening or weakening, is a far more complex exercise. And most of these, in fact, almost all these current rankings that exist is econometrically or statistically, these are jokes. These are very extremely flawed methodologies. They speak to a handful of experts. We don't know who these experts are, but even if we knew, statistically talking to such a small group of people on a perception-based uniform survey is not the right way to look at how a country like India, how is the democracy doing. So we're a very large country, 900 million electors, more than 100 languages. So you really have to look at data objectively, and that too representative data, Shiva. I think the point here is, we're not saying looking at government data. And that is, I think, the strength of this analysis and this paper, that we basically look at self-reported household data. So this is not administrative. These are households reporting. So if anything, this is an underestimate of what reality is. Okay. So when you look at 1.2 million households over 5 or 6 years of Modi administration, from the first year up until 1921,
Right.
This is the National Family Health Survey. We started looking at the bottom 20% and seeing, the idea was, there's so much noise around discrimination and declining majority. The attempt was to carefully look at the data and say, is there any discernible bias? Is there any discrimination in the administration when it comes to providing basic amenities? So we study around 6 amenities, big schemes pertaining to whether it's financial inclusion, so Jan Dhan account, whether it is mobile telephony, electricity, water, LPG, etc. And we find absolutely none. We don't find any discrimination or bias across religious groups, across social groups, so SC, STs, etc., or across geographic clusters. Because the geographic cluster one is not as obvious. Religious groups, it's easy to look at them. Geographical clusters, I think the reason it's important to study is not all districts in India are homogeneous. We have districts that are Muslim majority, we have districts that are Sikh majority, districts which are Christian majority, so on and so forth. Now, it's important to understand that if an administration really does want to discriminate, it's quite easy to do that. Geographically, you can just limit the pipes, so you can limit the electricity supply. Geographically, it's easy to target and discriminate.
Right.
That's why we look at it. And we look at all districts across the country. We find absolutely no discrimination of any form. And if anything, there are some amenities where minorities are actually doing marginally better.
Yes, I did show that. There are, of course, certain categories where the minority households are doing better. But I want to understand from you, how would you respond to people who will say that, when they criticize the fact that there is dwindling democracy in India, they don't generally mean government schemes. That's not where they're targeting. When they talk about majoritarianism or sliding democracy, they're talking about measures outside of government schemes.
Oh, it does. We have to define what are the measures, number one. And this particular study provides you an objective measure of some things. Otherwise, nothing has been defined objectively. Perception-based, extremely scattered view. Most of it is anecdotal. When you speak to 10 people, 20 people, it's your opinion versus another 20 people.
Right.
That's why looking at large objective databases become very important. Now, another reason why we have to look at data, Shivani, is that, everybody has a vote. And remember the expectations of the bottom 20%, which is the focus of my analysis. These are the weakest and the most vulnerable segments of our society. Now, in a democracy, this paper is also telling you that in a democracy, a handful of experts or handful of elite, I think that's the right word, cannot subvert the expectations and the aspirations by which they have voted for a certain government. And what do you think they vote for governments for? What is the expectation that comes out of their voting mechanism? They are voting for the government to provide them with basic amenities and take them out of this daily drudgery of life, which means water, electricity, just basic amenities. And politics apart, you can see that administration is not discriminating in any form. And so we are, it reaffirms a core belief, which is India's democracy. The roots are quite deep and healthy, and it's just a reaffirmation of that.
All right. Shamika Ravi, thanks a lot for joining us on your study. You're saying the roots of Indian democracy are quite sturdy. Thanks a lot for speaking to us. I also want to open this up to a couple of our guests joining us. Joining me is senior editor, News18.com, Aman Sharma. Rashid Kidwai, senior journalist, also stays with us. Let's go across to Rashid Kidwai first. Rashid Kidwai, you look here. Here's a study that is saying that, there's so much charges against the Narendra Modi government that they're anti-minority. You look at how the benefits of the government are going to the public, and minorities are even ahead of the majority community. So all of this politics that this government is anti-minority is based on nothing.
Shivani, we are a constitutional democracy. There is rule of law. Any government that takes oath of office, swears by, protecting Indian citizens, that includes Hindus, that includes all caste and creed. Now, what you're talking about discrimination all is a political rhetoric or political in nature. We know that, look at the representation of, Muslims in parliament. It's dwindling. You look at the BJP, which is largely today with 303 members of parliament, it does not have a single Muslim representative. Now, it's a complex phenomena, but that is why I'm explaining. I'm not justifying why this kind of things happen. That there's a discrimination and all that. So if you look at the number of MLAs, and from the BJP kitty and all, it's far less. So therefore, this rhetoric is there. But rule of law, constitutional democracy, as the study by Dr. Ravi was indicating, proves that point. It reinforces there is nobody is ashamed of Indian democracy. All of us are very proud of it and striving because there is rule of law.
Okay, but I think you may say so, but Aman, the reality is we are seeing increased attacks on quote-unquote Indian democracy. We've been termed an elected autocracy by some perception indices, and I think Shamika was referring to the fact that this study is a response to those studies that are, again and again targeting Indian democracy by talking to a handful of experts, but not giving us any idea on what basis is Indian democracy sliding. Do you think this is going to be a key study for the government?
Exactly. See, I think the study makes a very important point that all people in the country, irrespective of caste, creed or religion, are getting government benefits and various amenities. This is a sign of robust democracy, a sign of strengthening democracy. I would take you back to what the Prime Minister said earlier this month at the BJP's Foundation Day, when he said that there are many champions of social justice in the country and parties which claim they are champions, but it is only the BJP which is actually the champion of social justice because it has distributed all welfare schemes of the government without any bias. And the PM has been, this study also mentioned, the PM has been mentioning again and again about complete saturation of these schemes to reach the last mile, every person in the country. He said that from the ramparts of the Red Fort also on Independence Day earlier. Clearly, it shows that the scheme, and in fact, Shivani, there have never been any complaints that somebody has been discriminated in the distribution of a scheme, be it the Har Ghar Jal Yojana, be it the PM Awas Yojana, be it the Swachh Bharat toilet scheme, or be it the free distribution of ration that the government has done for over 2 years during the COVID regime. Every religion, every person irrespective of caste and creed has got these benefits, and I think this study makes that important point that if benefits are reaching every person in the country without any bias, this shows the sign of a strengthening democracy and not a dwindling democracy.
Yes, and interestingly, Shamika Ravi also mentioned that actually if you wanted to discriminate, it's very easy to do so, especially in terms of geography. There are Muslim-dominated areas, districts, and you could easily do it. But the fact that even in terms of geography, no distinction comes. In fact, Muslim households are gaining even more than Hindu households is a reflection. But, Aman, here's what I asked Shamika also. This is not government data. She answered that. This is self-reported data. So you can't say that this is just what government has put on its tables. But this is still schemes. What about the criticism outside of schemes?
Well, exactly. So, yeah, as Mr. Rashid Kadvi was saying that the inadequate representation of Muslims in parliament or be it in state assemblies, where the BJP is in power, that is a criticism which keeps on coming to the BJP. But the BJP always says that it's about winnability of the candidate. They go by the winnability of the candidate and not by the religion of the candidate. But of course, when it comes to, I think if we come back to what the schemes are all about, I think when we've traveled in elections, Shivani, to the ground, you do come across even minorities coming across and saying that yes, we have got a cylinder, yes, we have got a house, we have got drinking water, and nobody is discriminated against us in the village. Well, in the past, there have been cases where the upper caste used to, corner these benefits in the villages. At least in this government schemes, I don't see that happening, and it's a very, very equitable distribution.
That brings me to Rashid Kirwai. I have only 30 seconds left, sir. That's the fundamental reason why Modi continues to be popular. His fundamental moat is the beneficiary moat. And you see the erosion of the Muslim faith in some of the other parties, the more traditional Congress parties. Is it not because they're gaining more under Narendra Modi?
Yes, so Shivani, your question is slightly, in the sense, it's complex because here we are talking about the government benefits being passed on, and as Aman was saying about the political dividends that a particular community or its political aspirants are receiving. And as I said, this is a complex thing. In any case, the India story is always half full or half empty. We can go campaigning how many people are benefiting, but there are also a lot of people being left around. Remember, Justice Sachar Committee report was also a government, sponsored study, and that had shown that the minorities are lagging behind.
No, but what did the Congress do to that report? For that report and all of the time that it was in power is the question that will come to mind. But I've run out of time. Rashid Kidwai, Aman, thanks a lot for joining us. We'll try and take this forward when we can. Time for me to take your leave. My colleague Anusha is joining you with News Epicenter.
Good evening, hello and welcome to News Epicenter. I'm Anusha Soni. Well, today was the last day of filing elections for Karnataka elections. The nominations have been filed and it was a busy day at all the centres where the nominations were being filed. The fate of over 3,600 candidates shall be decided by over 5 crore voters in the state of Karnataka. The state polls in a single phase on the 10th of May and the results will be declared on the 13th. Well, a lot has happened in the run-up to elections, much more to happen. Apart from aggressive campaigning, there is rebellion, mutiny, defections and so much more. This election is a litmus test for the Congress and the BJP, and the contest has implications far beyond the state of Karnataka. This big election will be crucial for BJP's expansion in the south of the country, as the state is called the gateway to southern India and for political ambitions. For the Congress, it's not just about coming or holding on to power, coming back to power in the state of Karnataka. They were earlier in successive governments. But in many ways, for the grand old party, this is a fight for survival and relevance at the national level. As we inch closer to the polling day, the key question for the Congress is whether it can return to power. Will 40% commission chart stick? Can the party gain from the BJP turncoats, those high-profile exits that have happened? Can the grand old party notch up the Lingayat vote, a vote bank that decides the fate of any political party in the state of Karnataka? For the incumbent BJP, can it retain power? Will the corruption charges hurt the party? The 40% corruption charge, the kickbacks that the Congress party has made in the public domain. Can the new faces steer their political fortune? So many new faces have been fielded by the BJP. Or has the rebellion made the traditional BJP voters in the state? Can the Modi factor help it cross the finish line? Well, who can forget? The JDS, another crucial party in the state of Karnataka. Can it dent the BJP in Congress? JDS insists on forming a government on its own. That's what they've said in the public domain. But can it make its mark beyond south of Karnataka? Experts point out that maybe few seats in the north, but their assertions are far bigger. Can it make gain from the turncoats? At least 20 such turncoats, and some of them even have a winnability factor, as the experts suggest.